Hello, this is Rob Hirschfeld. I'm going to take a minute for my Crowbar 2 development work and explain how the new documentation system works, because we're really hoping that people will collaborate and add into the documentation system. It's been redesigned into text files, really markdown, so that the documentation can live close to the source, get more updated, be broken into smaller pieces. There's a lot of great benefits. This is what the screen looks like in development mode. I'm going to show you everything in dev mode. In production mode, it's not going to have some of these telltales that help developers find out and navigate how the doc system is. I'll show you. We're actually going to walk through making some changes into the doc system that'll help you understand what's going on. Basically, the doc system has two screens right now. One of the screens is this general documentation screen that covers all of the hierarchy of the bar clamp information. So we have like a getting started guide, a user guide, bar clamp index, and then every one of these can have multiple levels of information. And the design calls for each bar clamp to be able to add in its own documentation into the overall hierarchy. So the export logs function actually comes from the logs bar clamp, not from the Crowbar bar clamp. The test, all these extra bar clamp information, this would be an introduction to this test bar clamp. It's actually sourced from the test bar clamp, because depending on your configuration, you may or may not have those components. So the idea is that all this gets merged together into a single documentation set, even though bar clamps themselves are discrete entities. So they're all put together. In this case, let me show you what I'll drill into the export logs here. And what you'll see is some very basic, here's the export log. This comes from the text file. I'll show you how that works. And then here's a hierarchy of menus. So I can go up to the parent here, and I'm going to get the information. A lot of these are stubs here, and then I'm going to see the children. So I can easily navigate back and forth through the menu. I'm expecting to add a siblings navigation so that you can go forward or backwards. That is pending. I'll show you how all these things work. So back to the master index. Here's my different bar clamps, and I've been doing some work in the dev guide. I've been trying to make sure that our developer guide progresses as we make changes that impact development. So making bar clamps work with Crowbar, there's a localizations set, and here's how to do localizations, which is new. And then there's also should be a set adding menu items. Need to check the formatting of these level 3s because they're getting a little hard to read. But the idea is these actually should be sub-menus, sub-items, rather than embedded in the main document. So I'm going to walk you through the process for doing that, start to finish, and show you how you can take this type of editing. To do that, you need to make sure this is the VM that's actually running my Crowbar site. I'm going to stop it for a second, and you want to make sure that you're in the dev mode. So opt-del Crowbar framework, I'm in as root, and from anywhere, as long as I'm root, I can go to opt-del bin, and there's a dev mode script. It's been updated. It'll actually make sure that you stop the default web server, creates the database for development, runs the migration if they're needed to get the database into the right format and with the latest code, and then starts the development web server. So this will let you actually watch code as it goes through. And as a matter of fact, if I was to refresh the page here, you're going to see it's going to update as it does. You'll get debug output. All pretty straightforward. So now we're in dev mode, and we can start making some good changes. And along those lines, the other thing that I'll do, so I have a couple of other screens here. I have a builder screen where I have the code. This is its own VM, its own standalone VM, and I'm going to be making the changes into the Crowbar bar clamp. So all the changes are in the Crowbar framework doc directory. And once again, I'm just looking at one bar clamp. If I go do the same navigation on the server itself, so let me show you that window. So that window right here, this is the Crowbar framework window here of the installed server, and if I do the doc directory there and do a list, it's going to show me all of the bar clamps that have been installed in my instance of Crowbar, not just the one for that bar clamp. So they all come together, and instead of using these text tools, I prefer to work in a visual editor. I like to use TextMate. And in TextMate, you're going to see here's the doc directory. Inside the doc directory, and I've created stubs already for a lot of bar clamps, including for the model. So if you create a new bar clamp, these things should come in automatically. I'm going to have a meta file that has the information for my bar clamp. So this is the Crowbar bar clamp. So it's the Crowbar YAML documentation index, and this contains some metadata as the defaults for all my pages. And then this is the hierarchy. So what I'm showing you right now is the navigation tree from the main page in the UI. Crowbar is the bar clamp. You're not going to see those. Every entry here is going to be I need to tell it which bar clamp it is. In this case, the Crowbar is the main one. If I was to look at the test, here's my test bar clamp, and look at Crowbar framework doc here, and pull up the test YAML file, you'll notice I actually refer to the Crowbar book bar clamps, Crowbar bar clamp meta. This is for my navigation. I don't provide any information. And then I have the test bar clamp info page. So this page that starts with test is the one that's actually in the bar clamp. So I'm in the test bar clamp doc default for the default language. I'm providing for future localization. Test is the bar clamp name, and then in this case, bar clamp info. So test bar clamp info, this is one of the files. And licenses, test licenses, this is the other file. The other components here are simply a way to make sure that the navigation tree can build on top of itself, because I don't want the test documentation to be out of context. I want you to be able to inject the documentation in the right context and just add the little pieces and parts that you need to make a whole set. I hope that makes sense. So back in this file, what I want to do is I want to take this developer guide. So let me find the developer guide. We don't need test anymore. And over here, default Crowbar, and this one has quite a bit more. No surprise. I have my developer's guide right here. Book, I'm using book as a prefix for the top level. And this is all the text that's in here. Now this is a bit of a mess. And if you're not used to Markdown, it's actually very easy to write and edit. It's simple. And it doesn't have a lot of metadata. There's no XML or extra components. It's meant to be, you could just type it and it's more or less natural. But if you don't think in Markdown or want more visual editing, then I highly suggest this Control-Shift-Net Project Markdown Editor. And you can literally drop in your Markdown code and see what it's going to look like right there on the screen next to you, which is very handy. So you can make some changes. Like if I want to add the word purple, then I could easily do that. It's going to show up right there, and I can make sure that it is set. So let's split the developer's guide into sub-components, subtopics. And to do that, what I need to do is create some subfiles. So so let me explain my development environment just a moment. What I do for my development environment, to use TextMate, all my builds and Crowbar deployments are in VMs. So this is my builder VM. The path for Crowbar is actually exported as a Samba drive, and then that drive is mapped to V on my machine. So when I need to make changes, I can make them here, but they're really being made on my builder. And then, to make it very easy for me to track where everything is going or keep things up to date, I use WinSCP. And in this case, what I can do is I can take my doc directory. I had it set to synchronized directories. And then I can do a automatic synchronization. And when I do that, if I make a change to a file, it's going to automatically push it onto my Crowbar deploy server. So when I'm in dev mode, that means those changes automatically get picked up. It's a very fast, easy way for me to write some code, save it, automatically syncs over to the VM, and then I can test it. There's plenty of other ways to do successful Crowbar development. This one's been working for me for 6 to 8 months, and pretty happy with it. So what we need to do is we need to build some files. So right here, I'm just going to create some new files underneath the Crowbar. I'm going to prefix them with dev guide, and we're going to call this one the navigation. Actually, I'll be adding navigation, and this is a markdown file, so it needs to end with .md. Excellent. And so over here. Now, one of the things that makes things easier is if you choose your leveling correctly, then we'll be able to have different bar clamps. So what we really want to do is adding documentation is a third level. So I'm going to pull it out. Adding documentation over here is third level. And the way the system sets up, whatever you put in this first line is going to get picked up as the title in the UI. So let me show you in the UI over here. If I look at this overall index, all of these titles come from the first line here. So that'll become adding documentation when I put it in. And that also means to be successful with this, I need a third level, a middle level for this. And that is now here, these not pending sections, but making bar clamps work, with Crowbar. So I'm going to take this out. This is going to become another section. And so let me do that. Dev guide. Making bar clamps. MD. That's not what I meant. I want this one. So we take out that section. So here's my making bar clamps. I want that line to be first. That's the second level. It's okay for me to throw a little subsection in here and provide some information. All right. Here's my adding documentation. Now over here, if my WinSCP client has been happy, it has been keeping up with these changes and additions. All that's good. And then if my dev environment over here is happy, I should be able to see the same. Sorry, I'm not showing you. You can actually see these files that I just added. Okay, so everything's doing the thing, everything's doing what I expect it to do. And now if I go over here and hit update, you'll see dev guide, nothing's changed, which is exactly what I expected. In order to make things appear here, you must add them into the Metafile over here, right? This is my directory. So if I want these changes to be reflected, I have to come back and add some levels. So I actually have to come and add the Crowbar. That's the bar clamp I'm making these adds in. Dev guide, making bar clamps. I don't need the .md, it's going to assume that. And for now, I'm not going to add any order. And then under this, I need a colon because it's YAML. And under this, I'm going to add a section called dev guide, adding navigation. Sorry, has to start with Crowbar. If you forget that, it won't show it at all. Technically, I should do that, although the code is written to accommodate this. And then I'm going to be adding another one in a second, so I'm going to go ahead and create that now. Dev guide, and this one is going to be called localization. All right. Excellent. So now I've got the two topics I wanted to add. I hit save, so the changes got pushed right over. And if I come over here and hit refresh, what you should see is here's my dev guide, and here's the topics I just added. And notice it's pulling it out right from here. And it's pretty smart. It'll try and figure out your title if you want, but if you do it, if you have it, it'll say, hey, I didn't find this page, tell you what page is missing. Trying to keep things easy. So here's the developer's guide, the information we had in it, the child making bar clamps. Pretty straightforward to move all these things through. So this is that text I had with the pending sections, and here's our children. Let's see, adding documentation. and that's the details of what I had. So with all this, pretty straightforward for you to come in and make all those adds, get those pieces and parts in, or take a file and get it working right away, and knowing what it is. One thing I need to do, I will add, is a dev. If you're in dev mode, it will show you the path, so that you can immediately go to that file and start making changes. Remember, don't make the changes on the Crowbar server. You have to make the changes in source. So along those lines, if you're going to do that, you need to be aware of how to do source. So this really is going to work with you needing to use DevTool. So we've worked pretty hard to make DevTool easy to use. So even if you're just doing documentation or fixing localizations or things like that, DevTool should be pretty straightforward. I'm not going to try and teach you how to use DevTool. What I will show you is what a commit would look like. So in here, I'm going to find my status. I've modified some files. That's all fine. I need to add files. Get's pretty straightforward for this. So here's, I'm going to take this. I need to do a get add, which is exactly what it's telling me. I'm adding those files. So I'll add the other one. And before I go too far, let me actually create that other file that I was missing. A little housekeeping is always useful. So we had said that there will be another file, this one, dev guide localization. Let me create it. Good. And I want to pull out there it is. I think I got my sections backwards because this is navigation. So let's see. This is adding documentation. I'm getting all confused because I'm trying to blow through things in the video. This is actually a description of what this file's about. So let me put that back. All right. There's localizations. So one of the advantages of one, not doing this on video, but two, taking care of this as you go, is that I want you to be able to reorganize the documents, make them smart and intelligent. Let's see, where is my localization file? Here's localization, adding localizations, that's good. Making bar clamps, that's the top level. Adding navigation, we're going to pull back. Here's menu items. There we go, much better. So this, I can very quickly go in, write a whole bunch of content in one file, and if I then say, oh, I have enough content to break into some smaller pages, I can do that. And then it's important to try and keep the menus sane. So this is a third level item on the index, so I'm using third level bullets. Our goal is ultimately to be able to squish all this back together and create a single PDF out of each book. So consistent formatting, if you think about it just a little bit, will help you. And I've tried to capture that in this building documentation. So I'm going to have to add that also as a file. I'm not going to trouble you with that. So now I'm back over to my command window. I'm going to do a get status. In this case, it's saying, hey, you just made these 2 new files. That's right. And then you've modified these files. You've changed, this is a little bit of dev work I did before the video. I've changed the Crowbar YAML file, that's our index, and I've changed the deploy guide. I've changed, that was another thing I did in prep for the video. Changed the developer guide, and then I modified this adding navigation page. So that works with all these things I've been doing. At that point, I just do a git commit. I want to tell it I'm going to add all those changes look good, so a -a says I can just include them. I want to add my message in this, so updates to dev guide, make multi-level, or else, let me say split out the changes, split out subsections. Excellent. So at this point, I'm not done. These changes are committed. To actually make this go all the way, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go back to my Crowbar root. I'm going to use have to do a DevTool backup. Make sure I push my changes is always a good idea. The DevTool workflow is documented on the Crowbar wiki, so I'm not going to try and take you through all this stuff. But it's always a good idea to do a regular dev and a DevTool backup, DevTool sync. That'll make sure you're getting the latest bits and pieces. And then I have to do a pull request, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's a two-step process. I'm not going to generate a pull request here. Once again, DevTool workflow. I think we have a video on that too. But I wanted to make sure you knew, you got to make the changes, test the changes, get them live, make sure everything looks good, and then come back over to your code base and make sure that you push in what your changes are, make a pull request so we can get those documentation changes updated. All right. Good luck, and I'm hoping to see some really exciting edits in our docs. Thanks.